welcome to the second of our SGA debates for the 2015-16 school year. We have the debates for the Executive Vice President of Academic Affairs. So let's see, you won the coin toss. Go ahead and introduce yourself and give your 90-second opening remark.
Fabulous. Hi, my name is Kristina. I'm a current junior here at DePaul, studying sociology with minors in marketing and French. And I'm running for the position of Executive Vice President of Academic Affairs, which is the wordiest title. But anyway, my 3 years of experience here at DePaul have really given me a lot of insight into the various academic areas of DePaul. Currently, I was just elected the president of the Honors Student Government, and since my first year, I've been sitting on the Honors Program Committee, which Opinions Editor Zoe here knows is a committee in which students are elected and they give their opinions on whether or not courses should be added or taken out of the honors curriculum. I'm also the student assistant in a graduate program, and so that's given me a really interesting opportunity to learn more about graduate life here at DePaul. I'm also a Chicago quarter mentor, so I get to see the academic transition of first-year students and really learn a lot more about the resources that are important to them as they're transitioning to their college life. And my initiatives include broadly educational affordability, safety in the classroom, and allowing students to make the most out of their DePaul experience. I'm really passionate about being a Blue Demon, really passionate about academics, and I would really love to have the opportunity to serve my fellow peers in this role. Great. Tyler?
So my name is Tyler Solorio. I'm running for the exact same position as stated. A little bit of my background. I'm a public policy major here at DePaul. This is my first complete year as a transfer student. I was previously at 2 community colleges prior. A little bit of my background. I'm an Army veteran with a deployment to Afghanistan under my belt. I am also the non-traditional student board member on the Illinois Board of Higher Education, in which I make policies that impact over 1 million people, both students and faculty statewide. And from that position, I have a firm understanding of creating policies, developing policies that help direct an interaction between administrations and their student bodies respectively, much similar to the Executive Vice President of Academic Affairs role. One of the most notable things I was recently participated in was that I went down to the lobby on the same day that the student government did for MAP grants, but on top of MAP grants, I also push for affordability, for financial aid for undocumented students, and then we also help push the recent sexual assault prevention bill in higher education through the House, and is now on its second hearing, I believe, in the Senate, which the group that I'm involved with, IBAG SAC, which is the Student Advisory Committee, helped give in resolution to the Attorney General's office to help draft that. My initiatives consist of point 1, which I feel is the most broad and significant, is that we need to tailor academia to non-traditional students. More and more non-traditional is the new traditional, and we need an administration that can treat us as such. And I think it's important to recognize that. I think we need to evaluate course majors properly for my second, and then for my third, we need to find a new way of implementing social media to better integrate it with the classroom environment.
All right, great. And then the first question is going to go to Tyler. What initiative is the most important to your platform and why, and how will you make that happen?
So my first initiative is really, really important, and it's tailoring academia to non-traditional students. Now, I feel it's unfortunate that despite the fact that of increasing non-traditional students, where, as I've also said just a little bit prior, that it's new traditional, is that we still treat students like they should be able to be 100% students, which that's simply not the case. We have students who are working full-time, we have students who are working multiple jobs, we have students that have children, we have students that come from dynamic backgrounds. We have students that are particular communities that are underrepresented and underprivileged as well. And so when we look at members of the LGBTQA plus community, when we look at a variety of other communities, mental health community, veterans community, so on and so forth, they are treated like a student population that existed decades prior, and they are not that same student population. And so we need to find new ways of being able to have the faculty and the administration treat those students in regards to specific policies. And so I think it's important. It's a broad argument, but it's an important one.
All right, great. Kristina?
Well, it's really hard to put one initiative over the other because it's really hard to say different students at this university have different needs. But one of the things I'm most passionate about, one of the initiatives that I'm most excited about is one of my initiatives that falls under safety in the classroom. I would really like to, if I was to be elected in this position, I'd really like to begin a conversation with faculty, professors, and staff about implementing trigger warnings into the syllabi of classes that may deal with potentially sensitive material. As someone who's personally experienced this, it can be really difficult when you're sitting in a class and you're not really expecting a violent video to be shown or something that could be really emotionally triggering to be played. And it could be easily avoided, the emotional repercussions by that, from just saying, this is going to be triggering for some people. And so beginning that conversation, especially in classes like WGS classes or LGBTQ studies classes, easily implementing trigger warnings could really make the classroom environment safer for a lot of students.
All right. And these next two questions are kind of be tailored toward each of you, but each of you will get a chance to respond with 45 seconds response. So this first one's going to go to Kristina. You mentioned in your questionnaire that quality professors is one of your top 3 initiatives, specifically mentioning the tenure process. Please explain your position on tenure and your position on the debate over the rise of contingent faculty in academia.
Absolutely. So I think that my initiative in terms of tenure is not to change or to alter the tenure process, because ultimately students don't really know what the tenure process is like. One of my good friends is in the music school, and she came to the music school at DePaul specifically for these 2 professors, and she was really excited, and she's been in her year studying under these professors, and a few weeks ago she learned that both of them were denied tenure, so they'll be leaving DePaul. And that's really upsetting news for students who really care about these professors and they don't know why this tenure was denied. And so really starting by saying, what gives professors at this university tenure? What does that actually mean? What does that process look like? And how are students empowered to ensure that their favorite professors are given tenure? That's certainly important, an important discussion to have. And then we can look at whether or not those policies are practical for our environment.
Tyler, 45 seconds.
Okay, I agree with her very much in regards to that position. I think in particular, not only do we need to have that discussion on it, but I think that overall students need to be given the ability to be more proactive, not just through student government, but on a variety of other fields. I know, for example, course evaluations are used as a way of kind of engaging how they treat the process and how they treat promotions and what they can do with faculty. But then at the same time, I think it's also important to comment on that, and that students need to understand the importance of it and then need to have other ways beside course evaluations to at the same time make comments on that. So that kind of relates to one of my second points, which is major evaluation, where I think it's important to have comments on whole programs and how faculty is integrated with that program to try and better support not just them, but their majors and their communities entirely.
Okay.
Sorry. Tyler, you mentioned like broad ideas for tailoring academic structure for non-traditional students, but do you have any specifics on what is the role of SGA helping this issue, and what can SGA do and you do specifically in general to help get specifics and that sort of thing?
Okay, so with student government, is that these positions that we're running for, such as Executive Vice President of Academic Affairs, sits on councils where they are proactive in making arguments for the student body. So not only is it important to have a student in that position, but it's important to have a student that has an understanding of what's going on and can effectively argue it. So trigger warnings, I think, is one of those great mentions. Under my first point, when we talk about, okay, we have a non-traditional student body that's really dynamic background, how can we better tailor them? We can better tailor by bringing those conversations to these councils and to the administration. We can talk about trigger warnings. We can talk about the necessity of recognizing gender pronouns and that some people don't fit the gender binary. We need to understand that there's certain things that you can't say, but you might not be aware of because it might be discrimination to some extent. And we need somebody who can make those arguments on these councils.
Okay.
Kristina?
Well, I think an important thing to note is that DePaul is a very unique university from many other universities, and so in itself, it's a very non-traditional university. I'm from Michigan, and a lot of my good friends either go to Michigan or Michigan State, and the fact that we have 2 campuses, one uptown in Lincoln Park and one downtown, blows their mind, and that's something they can't wrap their head around. And so from that position alone, DePaul, every student at DePaul is really non-traditional. And so from that structure, the way that my classes are structured and the way that Loop and Lincoln Park classes have different times, that's already making a way for non-traditional students, aka all DePaul students, to really make their way. And so I agree that we just need to zone in and make sure that every population feels included. But I think that every DePaul student really understands that we are non-traditional in every form.
All right, great. Now we'll be moving on to some specific position issues, and these questions will both have 1-minute responses as well.
So Kristina, you can go first for this question. With the new provost coming this year, the 4th in 4 years, how do you plan to establish a working relationship with our new provost and to provide stability for the students?
That's a great question. And so I think the first way is to get to know him and get to know what his past experience is and what he wants to do looking forward, and to make sure that those things align or at least are somewhat related to the things that I want to do if I were to be elected in this position. And so really creating that working relationship by seeing what are the things that he sees in the long term, and hopefully he's not going through this revolving door of provosts, but really he's here for the long haul and has goals that he would really like to accomplish. So that's the first thing I would like to do. And then the second thing I think that would be really important is create environments in which students can meet this provost, so that it's not just me sharing the student experience, but it's really students from different colleges. We have over 10 different colleges, and while I'm a major in sociology and a minor in marketing, so I have experience in 2 colleges, there's 8 more that haven't been represented. And so getting students from each college to really interact with this provost and share their experiences can really make sure that the goals are shaped by real student feedback rather than maybe one person's opinion.
So Tyler, same question.
Okay, to that, so I think it's important, we keep talking about the need to have a conversation, the need to have a dialogue, but then at the same time, we have a need to educate. As students, often we're educated by our own faculty, but we need to educate the administration as well on issues that are particular to us. And so I think we need to use these opportunities, such as introducing a new provost, to be able to explain as student leaders the issues that are going on within particular to the student body, what needs to be addressed, what has not been addressed, which I feel there's a lack of criticalness into saying that, okay, everything's fine and dandy and we are working to promote things, because there's some things that may not be necessarily be recognized. And that conversation needs to be direct, and we need to make sure and be able to gauge that the provost is attentive through this, because it's one thing to have back and forth, but it's another thing to understand that he really listens. And that's something that we can gauge early on, straight from the get-go. And from there, just establish if there is going to be an opportunity for a working relationship, or if it just means that we're going to have to step up our game in how we fight for students.
Okay, great. All right, the next question, we'll start with you, Tyler. What does the role of a provost mean to you? Have you reached out to the new provost, or how could you start that relationship if you were elected?
I've not. I've been involved with a lot of current affairs that have been going on. I just recently resigned from the student government over certain issues, but I believe what's necessary is not only me having direct contact as through the position, but then using my position in order to bring other students in on that message. I think we need to bring in student leaders from across different organizations to really have that conversation, because as a student leader, why, yes, I might have a voice that speaks on their behalf, it doesn't have that same intimacy as leaders throughout these communities. And so it's really having a joint sit-down conversation, explaining that any one of us could be reached out, that while I might seem as a primary point of contact, I should not be the sole point of contact, and that it is really a community effort and that we need to take into consideration everybody when we make any decision-based process.
Okay, great. Kristina, same question.
So I've been really hoping to meet the new provost. I was at the Student Affairs Board of Trustees student mingle luncheon yesterday, and he was sitting at the table right next to me, and he left before I could talk to him. But honestly, the role of the provost in my eyes is to make sure that the academics at DePaul are a priority both while I'm a student, but also while I'm gone, because I think that a degree is not just something you get after 4 years and it doesn't make a difference. In 20 years, your degree from DePaul hopefully will have gained more value than less value since you've graduated. And so really the provost's job is to make sure that the academic rigor of our programs are up to par, so that with time, this degree will become more valuable for students. And so really speaking to this provost and seeing what his strategies for doing that, what are things that he wants to do to make DePaul step up from the rest and really make it comparable to a lot of other great schools in the area. Okay.
All right. So you both mentioned holding leadership positions both on and off campus. How will you separate those duties from your duty representing the students as a whole at DePaul? Kristina, you can go first.
That's a great question, and I think that in many ways they can't be separated, because my activities that I'm involved in make me the student that I am at DePaul, and they connect me to so many different students that if I was just this lone soldier kind of going through alone without any connections, I wouldn't have nearly the perspective that I do because of all the amazing connections that I've made. So really looking forward, if elected to this position, I would use my involvements to inform any actions that I would make in this position, but I would never make any actions in this position to benefit certain organizations that I would be involved in. Really, if elected to this position, those things would remain separate and really inform each other, but never benefit each other, if that makes sense. If they happen to benefit each other, that'd be great, but ultimately my decisions hopefully will benefit the students.
Tyler?
Right. So personally, I have what I feel is a moral obligation to not consolidate leadership roles. And so I feel that the roles that I do have is explicitly off campus, even though it does help statewide universities. It helps every university within across the state. But I feel that my experience directly tailors to me in this particular position because I've worked across the state with numerous lobbyists. I've worked across the state in forming a higher educational caucus. I've been involved in numerous higher educational discussions, and I get an interesting learning perspective that's only really offered to being a board member as per higher education. So being able to bring that in, yes, I would be a leader specifically in this capacity, but I feel it's also important to recognize the position of being an informal leader and having that flexibility to operate within a variety of groups across campus and being able to engage in those relationships, being like, my position is here for you to utilize it as necessary, for me to engage on behalf as necessary, and to work alongside you as necessary and as you're willing to see fit.
All right, great. Now we'll be moving into our section. We have a couple of questions about transparency, and for these questions, you will have 30 seconds to respond.
Okay.
Right. This one goes to the issue of secret ballots, just knowing how you guys vote currently. There are issues on SGA that the votes aren't public, but Tyler, and for you as well, just what is your stance on secret ballots? And Tyler, we can start with you.
I'm completely against secret ballots. I think we need a way of keeping all of our senators accountable. And if you cannot tell how they vote, that completely removes a layer of accountability. And I think it's important to be transparent. And from there, I've been against them since the get-go. When we had a secret ballot in front of Feminist Front as a resolution got shot down, I fiercely opposed it and was vocal against it and really resented being a participant in it. And it was events such as those which eventually led to my resignation, but absolutely stand against secret ballots.
While I do agree accountability is huge, I think that one of the things that open voting creates is really an easy way to attack people based on their opinions. If the votes are out, you can clearly go to different people and say, why did you vote this way? And that shouldn't be the case. Within our own government, within student government, especially at DePaul, we should have our representatives always feeling safe with their opinions and that they should always be able to vote from their heart and not from which way they're going to be least criticized for. And so ultimately with secret ballots, it would need to be an issue that's case by case, I think.
So our next question, we'll start with Kristina first. What is your stance on publishing meeting minutes?
Okay, so this year I've been working as the student government liaison for the honors program. So I go to student government meetings as liaison for the honors program, and I don't understand why meeting minutes aren't published. From what I understand, it would just be a lot of work for someone to type up the minutes, but if I were elected in this position, I would really push to have those meeting minutes published, because that's a very easy way for students to be engaged in this conversation and to be aware of the things that student government is doing for them as an advocate.
And then Tyler?
So I was vice president of another student government organization in which it was mandated that we have an elected secretary position in order to maintain accountability and constantly focus on publishing minutes of committees of everything. So that way it was a completely transparent process. We went to such an extent as to have 2 secretaries to constantly make sure that we were able to maintain accountability and transparency. And on a variety of other organizations I've served, it's kind of just like daft to think that you wouldn't constantly publish minutes. You have one person whose sole job is to do that, which remains unappointed in the current student government.
Okay, great. Now we'll be moving on. We opened up the questionnaire for students to send us in questions. So we have a couple different questions. We'll start with Tyler. This is from Michael Boswell. How do you view the university administration? Would they be your partner, your superior, your adversary? What sort of relationship do you envision having with senior administrators?
So I think obviously they'd have to serve as a partner, but I think in understanding that, it's somebody that we can say no to and somebody that we can have disagreements with, which I don't necessarily think is vocalized as often as it should be. And so I want to keep that in mind, because obviously if we have to get anything done, it's going to be through the administration. But then at the same time, we need to call the administration out as necessary, and we need to take hard stances for the students as necessary.
Kristina?
Absolutely, the administration is our #1 partner in this, and it's easy to separate students from the administration, but really students and the administration both have the same goal, which is to really make the DePaul experience as fast as it can. So if there ever comes an issue where the administration and potentially myself or any of my peers in the student government have an issue with the administration, it's not because they're trying to do something against student interests, it's because maybe they think that their decision is going to help student interests in a different way than what I would think. So really, compromise and having really clear communication would be the best way to deal with administration, because we both have the same goal, and why not work together to create those?
Okay, great.
Our next question is from Kennedy Carlson. DePaul University is named after St. Vincent de Paul and as an institution follows the Vincentian tradition. What does being Vincentian mean to you? And if elected, how will you utilize the Vincentian tradition during your position?
Me first?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Kristina first.
Fabulous. So in my 3 years at DePaul, I have gone on 4 service immersion trips, and I've had a really incredible experience to really engage with this Vincentian mission in a really meaningful way. In December, I went to Bogota, Colombia, and I lived there for 10 days, and living with a community in the Vincentian way really just taught me the incredible importance of really treating every human being with dignity. And that's something that since I've come back from Colombia and since I've been involved with this, it's really every single one of my interactions. It's really hearing where someone is coming from, taking their perspective into account and seeing what they can add to anything. And I think that that's something huge, is really collaboration with people all across the university. Everyone has different ideas and everyone has incredible ways that we can work together to really make something amazing.
And Tyler?
So I constantly, when we talk about Vincentian values, we bring up what must be done as the core question. And it's always revolving around community service, about doing good. But I think that there's a critical point that is often missed, and that it is not enough to do good, but you have to do it well. And I feel that in essence has been a problem of past leadership, is that we look at an organization that tries to do well, but falls short or misses a dime. And we need to step up that game. We need to raise the standard for ourselves as individual leaders. And if we don't, I think we're going to continually fall short. And to me, that's personally not acceptable. I've been in situations with bad leadership, and I've seen the impact of bad leadership, both locally and abroad in Afghanistan. And I know the cost of having leadership that does not have good being done well. And so I think it's important to integrate that notion. How much better can we perform for the students?
Thank you.
This one's from Kristen Riley. What will you guys do to create campus affinity beyond wearing blue on Thursdays? Tyler?
I absolutely agree with you on that. So I think what needs to be done in order to increase campus affinity, because as we need to recognize that not only are we non-traditional students, we are largely a commuter school. And by that, we need to have events that cater to them. We need a way of reaching the message out to them to get them better involved, but we have to give them reason to be involved. People don't participate because they don't see that there's anything that they can really get out of it, that there's something that they can't really develop from it. And we need to completely change that mentality. We need to show what's worthwhile in being a participant, what's worthwhile in being involved, what's worth making that additional trip or staying over or not getting home sooner. We need to accurately explain why it's willing to be commuting from the suburbs, from anywhere, and being a participant here at DePaul. And so while it's cutesy that on Thursdays we might wear blue, at the same time, we need to have a more critical aspect of, hey, there's a reason why they're not participating. Let's evaluate it, whether they're working full time, whether they might have anxiety issues, or whether they might have commuting issues, and see how we can tailor to these specific communities.
There are so many reasons to love being a Blue Demon, and I'm lucky to have a lot of reasons to love being a Blue Demon. From an academics perspective, I've really loved my experiences at DePaul because I've had really interesting interactions with professors that are really doing amazing work. So I think from an academic perspective, an area that has really been overlooked, I think, is really collaborating with professors and faculty who are doing work outside of the classroom, and students who are interested in getting research opportunity or just hands-on experience within their field, and really connecting those two things, because that's an incredible experience that a student can say, hey, I worked with Professor so-and-so on this project, and that's an experience I only had because I was a Blue Demon. And I think that those kinds of academic activities and experiences will really be able to help DePaul students really feel like they're set apart from a lot of other students because they have those incredible opportunities. And the professors are already doing that kind of work. I just don't think it's publicized and open to students as much as it should be.
Great, and then our final question before closing statements, another question from a student. How do you plan to help incorporate students living off campus into students on campus regarding the issue of academic inclusion? Sure, Kristina.
Well, I think that it's easy to say off campus and on campus, but the moment that you step off of Webster and Sheffield, because that's where I live, is Webster and Sheffield, are technically considered off campus. So there are lots of opportunities for students who are living off campus to be involved. That could be including passing out surveys within different classes, because students who are living off campus still hopefully have to go to class, so they could take surveys while they're in their classes. We could have forums that happen during the middle of the day where students can talk with their advisors or students can talk with their faculty and really give feedback as to what kinds of experience they're having at DePaul. Every student at DePaul is having their own interesting experience, and there's many different ways that we can cater to those.
So kind of expanding that, a majority of students are off campus for DePaul University, and in that we often make the statement that the city is your campus. And I think we really need to kind of embrace that. And when we have students being involved in organizations or in any kind of activity, that we're not necessarily just restricted to the campus, but we need to be able to achieve this through a variety of different ways, because while we might put the tools out there, while we might have certain social media out there in order to try and better engage students, at the same time, the university needs to take a more proactive approach in being able to educate students and get them involved. I mean, OrgSync can be a great tool, but then at the same time, you as a student have to bear a lot of the burden of, okay, how do I get in contact? How do I understand it? And we need to create more seamless processes, whether it's through mobile applications or a variety of other stuff that helps you really establish with the community that, hey, you might not be able to get to meet up with them often because you live all the way across the city or elsewhere, but you can still have that conversation with them, and we can make it as easy as possible for you to participate in these communities.
All right, great, thank you. And now we will have our closing statements. We'll start with Tyler. You have 30 seconds.
Okay, so I appreciate the time that I've had here. Really what I'm doing in running for this position is I'm offering the total of my experience to serve the student body. I'm not here in a paternalistic viewpoint where I'm looking down at you telling you that, hey, let me tell you how to do it properly. I'm here to say, what issues do you have? How can I assist you? How can I fight alongside you shoulder to shoulder? And I think that's what needs to be said, and I think that what needs to be recognized, because ultimately at the end of the day, they don't feel that relationship. So thank you.
Great, thank you. Kristina?
I feel absolutely honored that my three years of experience within DePaul has given me the opportunity to be in a position where I can run for this executive vice president of student affairs or of academic affairs position in order to serve the students. And I really hope that I would be able to use my experience within all the different areas of the university to really serve the student needs and to really be an open and active participant in discussions and conversations with students to really make the things that my peers care about happen.
All right, great. Well, thank you both so much for coming. All right, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Fabulous. Good job.
What's the
All
next day of date? Ian Pearson.
We'll begin at 11:10.
11:10.
15 minutes.